man, I have no idea how to start this, so I'll just do it in the simplest way. My name's Paul. I live in North Wales in the UK. I'm 33 years old, and on the 29th of December 2023, I decided to climb the tallest mountain in Wales by myself during a storm at night. And the reason I did this was to try methamphetamines for the first time. Now, first of all, off the back, this was a incredibly, stupid thing to do. About 4 people die a year on Snowdon, which is the mountain. And I definitely didn't make things easier for myself. Now, on a nice day, nice weather, Snowdon's not too bad of a mountain. It's quite beginner friendly. Young children go up there with their parents. But as I said, about 4 people die a year up there. It's definitely dangerous if you want to make it dangerous. And I added a fair bit of modifiers. Now, the reason I wanted to try methamphetamines for the first time is because in November of 2023, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Methamphetamines are a medication used for ADHD. Basically speaking, want to make it really simple. ADHD has issues regulating dopamine. It's either too high or it just burns out. And methamphetamines kind of simulate dopamine in a way that sort of like levels this out. That's an incredibly simplistic, non-doctor's explanation of what methamphetamines do to an ADHD brain. Basically, it was quite a late diagnosis, so I was almost 32. I think a lot of the reason I was diagnosed to begin with was because of people I was speaking to at the time, because for the most part, people were pretty surprised to find out I had ADHD. So my mother, for example, she had no idea, and neither did most of my friends. Like, I've always been a little bit weird, so like it wasn't too surprising, but most people just thought I was eccentric, a little bit intense, that sort of thing. However, now I've come to understand the diagnosis a little bit more. It makes a lot of sense. And essentially, the trip up the mountain, being completely honest, was a sort of self-destructive mental breakdown. So I'm going to have a quick disclaimer here. Do not fucking try this. 4 people a year on average die on Snowdon, and in the conditions I went up there, I definitely didn't do myself any favours. But let's kind of rewind the clock a bit. What we'll do is we'll discuss a bit of 2023, because quite a few things happened in 2023 that led me to discover this whole thing. We'll discuss a bit of the process that I went through with the diagnosis, the therapy, try medication, blah, 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 blah. And then we'll tell the cool story. And we'll just close out with what I've been doing since. So basically, at the beginning of 2023, I was out of work. I've had about 40 jobs in my life, and I'm only 33. But that's not really surprising for ADHD, apparently. But I was out of work, and I ended up getting a job working as a security guard for a hotel that had been converted into a homeless residence. While I was there, I helped them move a mattress. And I think it was during this time that I got bit by a tick. Now, if you don't know what a tick is, it's a little insect that basically attaches to you and drinks your blood. Now, ticks can also spread disease. I got bit by this tick, and I quickly started to experience really bad flu-like symptoms. Now, I normally never go to the doctors. It takes a hell of a lot to make me go. But I was feeling so rough, even I went. They gave me antibiotics. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with cellulitis, which is kind of a non-specific bacterial infection. However, I suspect, at least I was showing a lot of the symptoms of Lyme disease. But I was stuck on really strong antibiotics straight away. So luckily this did eventually work its way out of my system, but not before I lost about 25% of my body weight in a month. I used to be really heavy. I'm 6'4", but I used to weigh roughly in the region of 20 stone. I'll put a conversion somewhere. And I basically dropped down to 15 stone in a month. I've since gone up a little bit since, but not by a tremendous amount, because a lot of the effects of the tick bite were long lasting. Essentially, my muscles started to eat themselves. I had no appetite, and for about a month and a half I was more or less housebound. Eventually got over that and needed to work again, but my old job, the homeless hotel, not available because I had to take the money out. So I ended up working part-time as a security for a bar in a city. It was during this time that I met like a lot of cool people. I'm a pretty chatty guy, so I was chatting with a bunch of people, and basically one of them had ADHD, and he more or less told me, hey man, you might want to have a look. So I went down the whole rabbit hole and started to notice similarity after similarity after similarity after similarity, and kind of reached the understanding like, hey, I'm probably going to need to go and get assessed, so I've got an answer either way. I did use my credit card in order to go private, because I didn't want to wait years for free medical. So I ended up spending quite a bit of money on my credit card. I've since paid it off, but it was a whole thing at the time. And yeah, I went for the assessment. Pretty cool for the most part. I was just super honest with everything that was going on with myself, and I then spent, I want to say, I think it was about 2 months waiting. Kind of ended up with a lot of imposter syndrome, sort of ended up feeling like I'd over-exaggerated a bit, and maybe I just kind of looked into it, which is ironic because people with ADHD are known to like go down rabbit holes. But November comes round, and yeah, the diagnosis was official, which was a weird thing to find out at 32, that essentially you have a brain condition. So it's classified as a neurological developmental disorder. But yeah, it ended up being a bit of a head fuck, really, because you have like a perception of yourself, and then when that perception is shattered, all of your past actions kind of have a different lens that you look through. So for me, I'm pretty lucky. I'm an individual person, so obviously my experience isn't going to be representative of everyone's. And I have quite a high IQ, which means that I was quite effective at masking a lot of symptoms. Like, I couldn't pay attention in class, but I was smart enough to get C's and D's. So it wasn't so bad that it was noticeable. But it was still probably heavily detrimental, because whilst a higher intelligence might mask the ADHD does affect the intelligence, so you're not getting the most out of that either. So it kind of left me in this weird limbo where I'm in my 30s. I've had like close to 40 jobs. I've had over 3 relationships that lasted longer than a year. And basically throughout my whole life, I could pretty easily be described as like an all or nothing type person. I basically get really interested in a subject to the point of almost like manic obsession, and then suddenly that motivation will just crater through the floor. And it has been pretty interesting to find out that, hey, a lot of that stuff's probably like a dopamine issue. So that was interesting to find out. But we got the diagnosis and they asked me if I wanted to try medication. Sorry about that, I'm recording this in work. But yeah, they asked me if I wanted to try out medication. And I've tried drugs, so I thought, why the hell not? I know how it affects me. I know if it's a good or a bad thing, so I'll give it a go. This was obviously as we're approaching December, so the medication took a bit of a longer time to get to me. As a result, it basically gave me enough time to think about where I wanted to take it. Now, originally it was going to be somewhere pretty chill, like the woods, somewhere relaxing, but in like typical me fashion, I had to like keep adding layers to it, and then eventually I decided, hey, let's climb a mountain. Now I'd been up the mountain once before, so when I was like sort of 18, 19, so quite a while ago, but the fact I'd been up once kind of gave me a confidence in being able to do it again. Now, I did not plan well at all. So I left my house, I think it was 11 a.m. on I think it's the 29th, it could be the 28th, really sure what dates, the 29th of December. And I left my house, got on my bike, I have an electric bike, stuck it on the train, and took the train to Bangor, which is a city in Wales. And for like relation, Bangor is like a seaside sort of town, which means that Bangor is at sea level. Makes sense, right? So I took my bike from sea level to a little Welsh town next to the mountain called Llanberis. I would say I cycled. I mostly just pushed it up the hill because it's an incredibly elevated area and my bike's pretty heavy, and even the electric motor couldn't take me up most of those hills. So I ended up arriving in Llanberis, I want to say like 8 o'clock at night. So it's taken me like from 11, got the train, I think I missed a train, so I did have to wait an hour. But I got into Bangor at roughly, I think it was like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And again, this is on the 29th of December, so it's already almost dark. The weather's grey as hell because I live in the UK and it only ever seems to rain here. But yeah, it's basically getting kind of dark early afternoon because of how much clouds are about. Also, there was a couple of local storms in the area, so the weather's not particularly great. Luckily, whilst I did go up in a storm, it was mostly wind, which not great on a mountain, but better than rain and lightning. So yeah, by the time I get to Llanberis, it's about 8 p.m. No, I think it was a bit before that. I think it was about 7 p.m. And it is pitch black. It is fully night, dark as hell. The only thing I'm seeing is street lights and stuff like that. So I get there, drop my bike off, and make my way towards the path on the mountain. For the most part, Snowdon, at least at the beginning, is mostly just walking for a large amount of time uphill. It's got kind of a well-trodden path. Some of it's actually paved, especially at the beginning, so it's not too difficult. But one of the things that I started to see as an issue quite early on is just how dark it was. Basically, Llanberis is the closest town to Snowdon, and it has very little light pollution. There's not many big lights there. It's basically, essentially just a larger cul-de-sac. So I've got this really bright head torch. Like I don't even I got it because I used to cycle, but I stopped wearing it because it's so bright. It like just blinds people on the cycle path. But I'm wearing this head torch, and I can see maybe 5 meters in front of me. So this is bright ass torch, but still I can't really see anything. I can see the floor, which is great, but I can't see anything in the distance. I can't see the mountain. It's just darkness other than anything within like a close radius of me. So I just go ahead and walk. And as I'm walking, I start to notice that the wind's picking up. Now I'm a pretty big guy again, 6'4", quite heavy. I start to struggle to walk against the wind because it's coming at me, at least near the beginning. It basically feels like sort of an average sized person running up and pushing you every now and again. At one point I was held on to a fence. I think I actually managed to record this, so I might add it if I can. But I was grabbing on this fence, and it was literally just the fence that was keeping me still, because I'm holding on and this wind's just blasting me. But I'm already here now. It's taken me hours to get here. I'm getting up this mountain. So I keep walking, keep following the path. Now, for the most part, Snowdon's pretty well travelled. A lot of people go there, there's paths, but as you get closer to the top, there's not really any official paths. There's sort of like lightly trodden areas that kind of lead you where you're going, but there's no actual building of an actual path as you're getting further up, because it's simply a huge landmass. You're not going to build a path all the way up there. And as I'm getting closer to the top, because I can't see anything at all, and because the paths aren't as clear, I'm essentially just following Google Maps. I just have like my GPS location, and I'm trying to work out where the peak is and trying to work out a path to get up there. I keep going further, and the wind just starts to get like pretty fucking insane, especially near the top. I want to say minimum of 100 miles an hour. Like, I'd never experienced wind like it. The wind actually like hurt my skin when it was hitting me, like hit me in the face. It made the skin sting because it was just rushing into my face so quickly. And if it goes anywhere near your mouth, suddenly you can't breathe. I was end up walking up like this or turning away for a majority of the last part of the journey. Now, as you're slowly getting higher on the mountain, because Snowdon's quite high up, eventually you start to basically just reach cloud level. So you walk into the cloud. Imagine like really, really thick fog, but it's also kind of salty and wet. So you can like taste salt. I remember when I first went up there. I went up in the summer, and we were literally like knocking salt off our skin because of the cloud. But on a mountain at 100 miles an hour, a cloud's a little concerning, because my 5-meter vision radius basically became a meter or less. Because you're in the cloud, the light is illuminating the cloud in front of you, so it's making it almost harder to see. So at this point, I'm just looking at the ground, because as we're getting up in the clouds, we're getting higher up, and even though Snowdon's not too dangerous, especially near the bottom, when you're getting near the top, there's suddenly a lot of really big drops, and these drops aren't like onto a grassy knoll where you're going to roll. They're onto like jagged rocks, And again, the wind is, I want to say, yeah, it's got to be minimum 100 miles an hour. So no one's coming up for you. They're not sending a helicopter up in that. If I fall, then I'm as good as dead. It's actually quite funny because when I stopped up in Bangor, I went to grab some water from like a fucking like a supermarket, and I ended up mentioning to the cashier what I was doing, and the person who was behind me in the queue was actually a marine rescue guy. He was like, "What are you doing?" And I told him, and he just like, there was like a look of fear on his eyes. He just went, "I really recommend you don't do that." And essentially, well, what I said to him was, "Well, I've already made my mind. You might find my corpse up there tomorrow." So he might still be up there looking for it, who knows. But anyway, yeah, so we're in the cloud, we're walking up, we can't see fuck all. I'm just looking at the floor to make sure the floor is there, and kind of walking in the direction where the peak is on Google Maps. It's about half an hour into the cloud, and I heard what sounded like a large rumble. Now, what immediately flashed through my head was thunder. And up until this point, I hadn't really worried too much. I was like, yeah, it's a big drop. Yeah, if we fall, we're in real trouble. But I'm going to take my time and get up there. However, when I heard a rumble, my life flashed before my eyes because I'm in the cloud. So if there's lightning, I don't know if you've ever watched in slow motion, thunder and lightning, but essentially static electricity will arc through the cloud before like building up and firing the bolt. But I mean, this might be wrong, but at least here's my logic on it. As stack builds up, I'm pretty much the only conductible thing in that cloud. So if there's lightning, I'm fucked. And again, I'm over half an hour up into the cloud at this point. I can't see anything, so turning back and running down the mountain isn't going to be an option because I won't have the visibility. Luckily, it seems as though the rumble was wind going through a valley, and it was kind of like ripping through, so it made this large rumbling sound. So thankfully, I didn't become like a fucking fried chicken or something. But yeah, so I keep making my way up, and I want to say for the last hour, maybe hour and a half, like I'm starting to like experience like pretty severe exhaustion. Like it's cold, it's windy, and I've been walking for like at least 11 hours at this point. So, and it's all uphill. So I'm just absolutely exhausted. I think I was walking about 30 steps before having to stop, and then another 30 steps and another 30 steps, and just keep going on and just thinking about the next 30 steps because I'm stubborn as fuck. I'm not turning around at this point. I'm way too far up. But I keep walking, and eventually I reach what was a part of the journey that I was already a little bit worried about. So on the way up to Snowdon, again, it's not too crazy of a mountain. There isn't too much climbing involved. It's mostly just walking. But near the top is something that's kind of locally referred to as Knife's Ridge Edge. Best way to describe it would be a path that leads to the summit that's about a meter wide, and the right hand side is a drop that's gotta be at least 100 feet onto Jagged Rocks. Like if I fall, I'm dead. Well, no one's coming up here, so hopefully I'm from just the impact, otherwise I'm just slowly gonna die. But essentially I was a little bit worried about that, especially 100 miles an hour. I mentioned about 4 deaths a year. A lot of them are on Knife's Ridge Edge. So I took my time, I made sure every time I put my foot on the floor, it was securely planted. I did not care if it took me 5 hours to get across this edge. I was going to do it. So I slowly made my way across Nice Ridge Edge. The wind's getting even worse because we're reaching the summit now. It's absolutely insane. And I get to the top. There's a little bit of euphoria because I've made it. And I thought to myself, hey, I might get to go to the little marker. So at the top of Snowdon, there's essentially this little monument which just represents the absolute peak of the summit. Yeah, I couldn't get to that peak. It's basically there's a stone stairs made of rocks, and I was knelt on these stone stairs, literally grabbing them with my hand, and I was still almost getting blown off it. So I took a picture. I was a couple of feet away from it. Didn't get to the very tippy top, but I was at the summit. I didn't care at this point. I don't want to get flung off just trying to get to this little monument, which I can already see. At this point, I'm starting to get really cold and I'm very tired. So I find the ranger station and I just go and sit down in the doorway. It's all boarded off with metal grates, so I can't go inside, but it has a doorway, which means that I'm at least covered from every direction other than one. It was quite a steep doorway, so I could comfortably get my whole body in there, lay on the floor. And as soon as I sort of sat down, I just immediately fell asleep. Straight away. I woke up 3 hours later. Yeah, it was 3 hours later. It was 3 a.m. I remember I sent a text to my friends at close to midnight, which was when I got to the top. So it was 13 hours from leaving the house to go from sea level to the highest point in Wales. And then I had a 3-hour nap at the top. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I could not move my legs at all. Basically, my legs and feet had completely frozen. Again, considering 3 hours, cold as hell, windy as hell. I'm in a cloud, so it's damp, and I'm also asleep on concrete. So it's not exactly great. My hips are hurting, my legs are hurting. And any time I tried to move my legs, it felt like they was about to cramp up. Like any small movement felt like they're about to go. So I'm like, crap, I can't really move. So luckily, I wore a bunch of coats when I went up there. I had some free coats and jumpers and everything on. So I took off one of my coats and I wrapped it around my legs. I then got my backpack, emptied it out so I could stick my feet in my backpack to try and warm them up. And I'm basically just rubbing my legs and trying to become mobile again. I then pull out my phone because again it's 3 a.m. and I check my phone to see what time sunrise is, because I've essentially have partial hypothermia at this point, so I don't really want to wait up there any longer. But I also don't want to go down at night, because with wind and everything coming up at night is one thing, but if I'm going up and I fall, there's something for me to grab. If I'm going down and I trip or fall, I'm just going to keep going down the mountain. So I didn't really want to go down at night, but I looked at the sunrise on my phone and it said it was 8 a.m. because again, it's winter. So I'm like, fuck, I'm going to have to go down at night because I can't stay up here any longer. Again, I already kind of hypothermic. So I tried the methamphetamine and I start to work my way down. Now, luckily, there is a train track that can go up and down. So I thought, that's going to be quite a strong structure and at least level. So I just walked down the train track because it's night, no one's using it, and it's going to be taking me in the right direction, and it's going to be flat enough that falling's not likely because it's going to need to be fortified for a train. So I go down, I start to make my way back down the mountain, and I want to say like an hour passed maybe, and I'm more on like a plateau. I've kind of reached a part where, okay, the land's flattened out, there aren't these big drops and cliff faces. I'm essentially safe now. It's just more a matter of just time to get back to my bike. And it's at this point that I start to feel like really chill, just calm and relaxed. Now, I don't know if that was the medication. It does have a similar effect on me, but also like the adrenaline and the journey and waking up after 3 hours on top of a mountain. It's very difficult at that point to say that it was all the medication and not just like relief that I'm on my way back down. But I was super relaxed. For some reason, my night vision was just incredible. Like the moon was illuminating everything perfectly for me. I ended up turning off my head torch once I got out of the cloud because I could just see fine. I walked down for a few hours, saw a bunch of sheep. Eventually got to Llanberis, got myself a bit of breakfast, and then took my bike on the motorway and had quite a chill cycle back down to Bangor because it's mostly downhill, so I got some good speed. Not too much because the brakes on the bike were crap. But yeah, I got on the train. I reached home, and ironically, I got home at about 11 a.m. on the next day, so it was a full 24 hours. I had a shower, my eyes were burning, washing all the salt out, and I had 6 hours sleep, and I went to work. And yeah, all of that was to just try ADHD medication up the top of the mountain. Now, I would never recommend it. As I said, it was basically kind of like a self-destructive sort of, I don't want to say mental breakdown, but it was like a weird epiphany of like discovering something, and I felt I needed to do something extreme. It was a couple of months after this that basically Lyme disease plus mountain plus a couple of other little bugs here and there, I actually eventually then went and got, I think it was COVID in about April, and yeah, it just messed my chest up until pretty much January. So from April 2024 to January 2025, I essentially had like a permanent lost the ability to breathe, which is why it took so long to make this video, really. Didn't really have the energy for it. But after going through all of this, it has led to like a few realizations. So I think mentally I thought that completing Snowdon would have been like a way to process the whole ADHD thing. Like it was like an achievement where I could kind of like put a bow on it and go, yeah, I completed it, woohoo. But understanding a bit more about dopamine, should have realised it doesn't work like that. Dopamine is a response to a perceived reward. So the reason dopamine motivates us to continue doing the thing is because we want to achieve something. We don't get dopamine because we've achieved it. We get it in the anticipation of achieving it. And it was basically like that for me. For a couple of months, the whole fact that I completed the mountain was pretty cool. It was some stories I could tell my friends. But as time passed, it really didn't address anything. It was just another crazy thing that I did. What ended up addressing it really was that time afterwards, that getting unwell ended up really understanding my own mortality. Because I'm only in my 30s, I've always been pretty physically fit. I do kickboxing, I work security, really tall. But spending close to a year when you're getting tired from a 5-minute walk, really puts things into perspective. It's definitely made me appreciate things since. So as a couple of things I've been sort of trying to learn in order to not really so much improve myself, but just more because I enjoy learning. I'm currently building a drone. I've done most of the soldering for that, the flight computer and all this. I really just need a camera and headset now. I am hoping once that's done to actually go back to Snowdon and do some cool drone footage. I've also got a 3D printer and I know how to 3D model, so I'm currently doing a bunch of that stuff. But yeah, other than that, I'm just going on with life. I wouldn't mind doing more of this sort of YouTubey stuff, to be honest. I love a debate. I love gaming. So we might see something in the future. Random cough. If you've enjoyed this rambling mess, feel free to comment or something. I'm probably going to respond to pretty much any comment I get, so ask us a question. And yeah, thanks for watching.